Wow, that was a lot of voices. All right, away we go, everybody. Oh, I gotta load it. Hang on. Oops. Hang on. You got me in here too many times. Yeah, sorry. That's not gonna work. Let's see. I got in there twice somehow. All right, GVD, you're my man. Am I back here? Am I square? Yeah, something got whacked out there. Too much technology. Too many things going on at once. I believe I'm recording in. There we go. Okay, welcome everybody. It is July 16th of 2025, and we start again in one of my favorite calls of the week, which is the Profitable Real Estate Agent Plan call. I love this because it really keeps me personally grounded in a strategic approach. And I was thinking about that. In fact, Grant and I were talking about this earlier with John Parasek and two coaching clients, Grant, my partner in Arizona. We started just talking about how important it has been to just stay in the mindset of trying to maintain a strategic approach. And that's where this whole course comes from. It's this idea that we have to spend some time every week in a strategic discussion about how this business works. And I'm going to get into that in a second today. If you saw the email blast that went out, I referenced Michael Gerber, and I'm going to go straight into the model tonight to show it to you, because the first week in this plan, when we relaunch it, I did differently last time. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put an infographic up on the screen, and I'm just going to talk about it. I'm going to tell you how simply this business actually works from a strategic viewpoint. And then as the weeks progress, we'll get into it. Now, having said that, there are topics to this, right? So I will show you those topics as I get into it. Hang on one second here. Chrome tab right here. Bear with me. It's just a lot of technology here. So let's show you the screen, and you can tell me. We should be seeing topics in a second, and you can tell me when you would see those topics. Okay. Yep. There you go. See it now? Okay. Okay. So you see the topics. Okay, good. So the reason I reset last time when we were working through the 12 steps, I just keep trying to refine everything that I do. So the same methodology to make this course better for you is the same methodology that I use to make my business model better for myself, share it with Griffin agents, share it with my partners and my coaching clients, everybody. It's just a universal wireframe that you're trying to mold into shape so that it is the most efficient time management system that you can have. And that's one of the biggest things as a coach that I've heard over the years. I mean, I've been doing this for now close to 26 years. And in that time, anytime I was in a coaching context, people would come to me all frustrated with time management. Still happens. Still working with clients that come to me. A lot of them are out of Canada, out of a group in EXP, that a lot of them are top producers that know me. And I think they've had enough of trying to do it by winging it and doing it on muscle. And you'll see how I explain that tonight. But it's important that you start off with a holistic understanding of the business. Okay. So that's why week one, we talk about the plan. I'm just going to explain it to you. But then you're going to notice as time goes on, and I make this even better. I have these 12 quick bullet points, but they actually fit nicely into sections in the plan that I'm about to show you. And I'll talk about that, right? You can see actually above this, I've been working on that. Up here, you'll see that in the strategic business vision and leadership, really vision. Okay. You watch me do it live, right? These are two things you're going to see in the model. Okay. You're going to see that. Then you're going to see strategic marketing plan. So as we go through the 12 weeks, I get into some tactical stuff, how to do it, right? How to do it. But it's really the strategic what to do that matters the most first. You can't really get down in how to do it. So for example, people just want to talk about leads in this business as if that's like some kind of panacea for all the problems that ails a business. It's not even close to that, right? It's really way off. And so it's like charting the course to go over to England in a sailboat, and you're 1 degree off, and I don't know, you end up in Iceland at some point in time, and you just can't fathom how you thought you were so close. So I think it's important for you to understand that each round of this, I keep making it more refined so your animal brain won't shut down, and it allows some space for your thriving brain. Whether you listen to the recording of this, you come live, whatever it is, it elevates the way that you think about our business, because it is the master key, as Napoleon Hill would call it. It's the master key to getting out of just running in circles and thinking that that's a business model. It is not. Okay. So I'm going to go into this next level here and show you the infographic. So bear with me. I have to change again to show you this, but this will be just one screen tonight, my promises. So I'll see it there. I'll change it in 2 places, so bear with me. Correct. Yes, correct. Here we go. Okay, so you should be seeing on your screen now the model. Yes? Okay, good. Tell me if you can still see it when I navigate away from it. Can you still see it? Okay, good. So the most important thing about this model, and by the way, just so you see how real it is for me, I just reached for my PDF format, right? It's right there. I never do any work at this desk where this thing isn't staring me in the face and reminding me to stay structured so that I don't get carried away, because it's very easy to get emotional about this business and do what you think you should do versus getting really into this plan, right? So as you look at this plan, it's predicated, and if you want to do the reading or the listening, audio books or physical books, I don't care. It's well worth your time to listen to Michael Gerber's E-Myth, which stands for Entrepreneurial Myth. But to your benefit, I have been a student of that book for many years, amongst many others, that are the fundamental readings that helped me build this small business model. But none more important than the structure that you're looking at from Michael Gerber. In fact, somewhere in my archives, I have a signed copy of this by him. I met him back some years ago at the ripe old age of 80, and he's a very feisty guy to begin with. It was just fun to see him and meet him. But it was interesting to see how abruptly direct he was about things. So he's an no BS kind of guy. And I liked that, because this shouldn't be something where we're babbling on about business. It should be one of these, right? It should be just cut and dry, cut to the point. And in his book, when you read it and listen to it, you're going to see it's almost like he's alluding to a tripolar mentality. So he references the entrepreneur, which is in the title of the book, albeit abbreviated. E stands for entrepreneur. M, okay, that's also discussed heavily in his book, is the manager. And T is the technician. So there are these 3 personas that are discussed when it comes to who we must be as small business people. Now, forget about teams and adding people. I'm talking us individually. It's a mindset that you have to see that there are 3 categories in your brain. The entrepreneur, as you can see from this here, I use the word vision, strategic business vision, strategic leadership vision. The entrepreneur is very, very much of a visionary. They're the ones that see this thing that could be, right? So we all have a little bit of a touch in us, with that. Obviously, mine's a heavy dose of that. Some are lighter, but if you're in an independent contractor situation, that means you are a business owner and you are fully responsible for having a strategic business vision, both for the business and what it will become, and who you are and who you must become, right? So that's what the entrepreneurial section of this whole idea that Gerber brings to us means. Then and only then can you begin to plan. I'm not saying that in the next week when we go into the business vision, I'm not going to help you plan with some very clear, simple, quantitative goals. And for all the Griffin agents or TRCers, anybody that's in my coaching or brokerage world, I'm going to harp on spreadsheets that are stupid simple, the GCI goal sheet. So yes, There's tactical stuff that we do when we talk about a plan, but why? Strategic, that word strategic begs a why. It just begs a big why. Why would I spend any time on a call like this? And why would I? Because I just do it benevolently. This originally started not even for Griffin TRCers, because they have plenty of calls they can come onto that are included in the brokerage, work or the paid coaching program, right? So you could be there, but yet we have people that show up because it's a reminder. Grant and I probably the most dedicated to that, just programming the brain. We're trying to brainwash ourselves. We'll just say it transparently so that we never stop thinking. And why would you do that? Because what we know as top producers is that we've gone out there with a chisel and a hammer and we've just broken the bricks before. And the problem with that is, well, let's start with the good part of it. You can sell a lot of homes. If you work your tail off and you do a lot of talking and a lot of tactics to people about real estate, you can sell a lot of homes and you can gross a lot of money. I don't know that you can make a lot of money because that's a whole business formula, right? So that's why it's important to kind of roll back and, if you will, go for a little imaginary walk with me above the real estate business that we're all in. And I mean the real estate agent, individual, because you can expand an agent into an agency. You can expand an agent into a team where there are supportive people, right? That's the only team model I like, this idea of like, I have agents who are my team. That's not right. Like Laura is a client care manager who works with me directly, gets a stipend plus a commission for my business and my business only, not hers. That's a team member. 2 telemarketers making outbound calls, those are team members. A closing coordinator, that's a team member. So your sales machine or team strategically shouldn't be confused with a business model either. It's a name that got bastardized in the business. So see, again, when we're above the business, I can give you some clarity even about these misnomers that we have in our business. Now I'm just going to remind you that the business model that you're staring at is just for you. It doesn't matter even if you're on this call and you are a telemarketer, you are a client care manager, or you're budding, your way through the licensure. It's about you. I'm talking to you as an individual independent contractor and describing for you the why you need a business model to look at strategically is because a business without one is destined to fail. I'm not saying that you would stop selling properties, but you are failed as a business model. You are nothing more than a technician that's up every day trying to run. It's like an alligator race. Every day you woke up and you put your feet on the floor once you're dressed for work, the unleash of the alligators happens and you start running until you find somebody who wants to buy or sell a house. You come back in, shut the cage behind you, and the alligators wait for you the next day. That's in essence what the majority of real estate agents do, and especially top producers. Don't think that top producers have this figured out by any stretch, because I am one before I became this strategist, and I coach nothing but top producers at the coaching level, right? So you have to understand that's why there's a problem to deal with. See, why do we need Gerber? Why did I make a model like this? Because I was one of those people with the problem that anytime I was with my kids or my family early on, and again, 25 years ago, I didn't even have any babies, did I? Stephanie, yep, Stephanie and Jenny. So I did have 2 babies when I got into this business, and they were just little kids. So if I wanted to be somewhere with them, but all of a sudden the phone would ring and I'd have to stop what I was doing, well, that's not really a business. I'm not saying that I still wouldn't do that sometimes to a certain extent because it's sales and sales have an immediacy, but all the time, hell no. Hell no. Now that's one-time management problem for the top producer. And that's why the top producer needs a strategic framework. But if you're brand new in this business, it's even more difficult for you because you have no idea what to do. So you don't have a time management issue as much as you don't know what to do with your time. So you've got these 2 ends of the spectrum. You have the newbie who's in the business and doesn't really know what to do to start to turn it into something that's sustainable and predictable. And you have the top producer who's running ragged and they're losing their life to the business. I have one who's such a top producer. He actually had 7 commission checks waiting for him that were backed up and that he didn't file the paperwork to collect the checks. Okay. Does that sound normal? So it really is one end or the other. Here's the great news. For both of those ends of the spectrum and everything in between, it's the same solution. Same one. And you're looking at it up on the board tonight. So when we start, we say, well, wait a minute. How does the real estate agent business really work at an individualized level as the independent contractor starting out, which we all are, even if we have teams, even if you have a brokerage like me with partners, et cetera, it's still an individual nugget that has to be built upon. So every agent in an agency needs a strategic business vision. Now, can we all have the same one? Yes, we can. We can have the exact same one. And that strategic business vision in Gerber's world is a franchise prototype. Now, what that means is that we are going to try to build business systems that are duplicatable from Arizona to Ontario to Cape Cod and anywhere in between and all around. So we're saying, could we build a Starbucks model? In Gerber's book, he's heavy on McDonald's. Ray Kroc had a massive influence on Michael Gerber's life, and more so. And if you want to see an incredibly good movie about business, watch The Founder. Staggeringly good about the McDonald's brothers, who really were the brains behind building a systematic business, right? So in Gerber's world, when he challenges you to say, how does the business really work? Insert, how does the real estate agent business really work at its best if you fill in all the blanks, right? How does it really work? That's why we're getting above it. But sometimes you have to observe other businesses. And so in his case, he introduces McDonald's. Well, how the heck do you make this like a McDonald's? We're not producing something physically. So when you see that, you say, okay, can we as real estate agents make this somehow like a physical business? Can we manufacture a Happy Meal? Can we manufacture a Tesla? A Ford is really where I went when I started to think about it. Could I have a vision for my business that behaved like a Henry Ford plant, that created a Model T who was sold off to somebody who became a very happy past client as they drove off, likely to refer me to their friends. And once theirs got old and broken down, they would come back and repeat. Could I do that? And that was thanks to Gerber's idea that this should be something that's universal, repeatable, sustainable. So now you say, okay, that's pretty good, but I just want to sell something. So now you see up in that top piece with the entrepreneur, I'll bite. That's easy to see. You got all these great businesses. And by the way, Amazon is nothing but a reinvention of Sears and Roebuck, which used to supply, it was a supply house for rural communities, farmers, et cetera. It was just a big supply house, right? So the modern version of that is, well, then it became Walmart, which was rural to begin with in Arkansas. And then it became this amazing machine tooled place. So these things they haven't changed. It's just that if you look at them, technology has played a bigger role. In fact, today we use technology with AI to do some of our strategic marketing today, right? Grant, myself, John Parasek, we used it. So yes, it was more efficient. Yes, it was faster, but it's still behaving the same way that it always has with content marketing, which is part of this course. So again, could I come up with a way and an understanding, do it and share it with you that we could do this? And I said, yes. And here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to look at the raw materials at the front of a Henry Ford assembly line. And I'm going to think that my raw materials could be the equivalent of that. So my business vision starts to talk about the equivalent of a physical business. So how do I do that? Well, what are my raw materials? What are your raw materials? It's a contact information, just like it is the steel and the wiring and whatever raw materials they have. Okay. So the equivalent is, if I'm trying to make a car, maybe I've got some rubber for the tires. Maybe I've got some steel for the frame. I've got some, these days, wiring, right? I mean, I've got parts. Well, a contact can be the same thing. I've got parts. What do you mean? Well, I have full names. I can have email addresses. I can have phone numbers, and I can have mailing addresses. So a fully formed raw material pile for my manufacturing business is going to be those things, just like the raw materials in a car. Good start, right? Good start. But now the question is, okay, what does that look like as it rolls down the assembly line? And what am I trying to accomplish? Well, you say, I'm trying to get a check. I went a little bit differently there. I saw money as a byproduct of a process. And I thought to myself, geez, I really want to create something that repeats and refers like a happy Ford client back in the day. I want that. And so, and I also, and by the way, Henry didn't invent the car. He invented really the use of the assembly line as it relates to the car. He didn't invent either one. It was just this process that he puts together. So I wanted the same result. Because if you've been around this business even for 20 minutes, you start to realize most top producers are getting referred, right? They're getting repeat business because they've been in so dang long. They sold so many houses. By luck, most of those people come along. So that's what they were creating. And I named it. It wasn't a Model T. I called it a Happy Griffin. So I started to play this game with this assembly line, and I gave myself simple concepts to keep myself in there and recognizing that this was a big deal, because what was flowing along there was this contact whose disposition was changing. It was going through stages. Strategically, I could see this business working. I was building my assembly line. It wasn't even happening. And by the way, I was building it from scratch while I was doing business purely tactically, right? So now all of a sudden I could see it. And I said, okay, I'm going to have to be a person that's different from the one I am. I'm going to have to recognize, and that's why I leave it up here. Yes, I'm the entrepreneur. I've been working for myself since I walked out of a Wall Street firm, a venture capital firm after that, a long time ago, to be an entrepreneur. I get it. Sometimes it's a curse when you want to be an independent contractor, but I couldn't articulate it like I can today, but that's what I did. So I've been that a long time. So I understood this, and I had some experience in those Wall Street type of environments where I saw good companies had processes. So Michael Gerber's book wasn't lost on me. It just related now to me as a solo flyer, a small business, right? Solopreneur, as they call them. So I realized that I had started off in more of a panic as an entrepreneur because I had little kids, right? I told you I was already there. Not quite when I was an entrepreneur in that business, but I was more in that panic mode. I needed hunt and gather. I got to go get a check. If you sneeze the words real estate near me, sure, my tactic was, you got a business card in your hand, and I started talking to you about real estate. I was on you. I would deliver pictures and details of properties. I would do whatever it took, take pictures with back then an old camera, right? Whatever it took, I would tactically get to you, and I would help you buy or sell a house. And again, like I said, I probably was my own avatar for coaching. I was starving for something better because I knew better coming out of finance. I knew better. And I would go to Barnes & Noble and I would look. But until I found out of Realtor Magazine a mentor who was talking about systems and talking this Michael Gerber-ish way, I didn't know. And then I got on a plane right after September 11th, and there it was, the discussion of systems. It was clunky. I didn't quite wrap my head all around it. I thought it was bits and pieces. It wasn't quite simple to my brain, but I could see them. I could see them talking about certain things. I saw scripts being organized. I heard about lead generation for the first time. I heard about getting people to help you. But to me, my brain just still saw it as unorganized. And even though I became part of that organization as a head coach, I still felt like something was off. It was too complicated. There was systematic ways things were being done, but they weren't hooked into each other like an assembly line. So I imagined very similarly to the old days of cars, a lot of people were making cars, but Henry had really hooked the stages of the assembly line together. And so I knew that. So I decided in my head that I would always go up into a glass room looking down at assembly line. If you've ever seen old movies of an old plant, there's usually a stairwell and there's a glass room above, and you can see down to where the manufacturing is taking place. And it never left me. Never left me. In fact, I grew up in the retail booze business. We had a room like that, and you could see the whole retail floor. So voila, there it was. Sit up there, watch how the business is working, go down and move things around, go back up, look it up. And that's exactly what I do every week. So now I'm a strategist every time I'm up in that glass room. I'm a tactical worker moving things around when I'm on the floor. And or I should say, I'm sorry, I'm a planner when I'm moving things around. And then when I sit at a station, I'm doing the job. And if I can't do all the jobs, people are sitting next to me. So again, I could see from the glass room, I could go down and plan by moving things around, and then I could execute. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So my business vision, my leadership vision to lead myself in the growth of this business was that I was going to be tripolar as evenly as possible, meaning I would try to spend as much time strategizing, then moving the plan around into its pieces, then doing the work. And I do all of them, a lot, all of them. You might hear me talk tactically about doing 6 open houses in a weekend. I do, because I work very hard as a technician. But I got all my open house materials all organized because the planner in us from a marketing standpoint is done. But then after doing it all, I go back up to the strategic room and say, what's missing in this strategy for open houses? So it's a process. I'm introducing you to a process to be intentional and aware that those are different things. Strategy is thinking about overall, how does this all connect together? And then helping each plan get adopted. The planner now has to write out all of the checklists. And if you're going to digitize them, has to program them into a software. And then the technician is supposed to do that work and only that work and report back that tweaks need to be made. So that's who I had to become. So here's this really Henry Ford-like assembly line business. Yes, McDonald's, but more like Henry Ford for me. And that's who I had to become. 3 people. And that's what I preach. Now, if I get down into marketing, all of a sudden it's like crazy how differently I see marketing. And you probably listen to me and you're like, oh my gosh, that's not what I hear out there. Yeah, because you hear lead generation as if it's marketing. Yet there's not one strategist who begins to put together a plan that doesn't reference unique selling proposition if they have a brain as a marketer. Avatar, that you're going to match up with that unique selling proposition, which means ideal persona. So nobody even talks about that. Then in a world of strategic social media, nobody even talks about manifesting that unique selling proposition as a piece of content. Nobody talks about an information product, which is old as the days. Nobody talks about a free sample, which is not a new technique. So you see, when you start to think strategically, you're like, okay, let me not follow the herd. Let me think. Aren't there things I've learned about in Marketing 101 over the years by reading a lot of Dan Kennedy stuff, guerrilla marketing, just doing some studying online about Rosser Reeves and unique selling propositions. And all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I think this might be easier than I think. So before I go out and decide what kind of leads, AKA raw materials. Remember I said, I need steel, I need wiring, I need rubber to put together this car. Okay, does that mean I just run to the internet and I get some internet buyer leads? No, the brakes just got screeched on the minute these things came. I took things like Market Leader, where I was getting and doing a better strategic job when I first started, and just stopped them. I just stopped buying internet leads one day. And I just took a blind leap of faith that I was going to do what the business was telling me to do. Was saying, how does the business really work? Well, they're creating these listings. Yes, buyers are coming in, but they're creating these listings, and these listings are really the thing that makes the assembly line go. Buyers don't run down there, sellers do. So the buyers jump on at a certain point in time, but the manufacturing that's happening in the business is all about a listing. So that's how the business works. And I imagine Gerber up in that room with me, with Henry, putting pressure on me and looking at me and going, how come you don't get more listings then? And where is your strategic plan matched up with an avatar for a listing? You see, all of a sudden it just becomes so obvious. And you can't run away from it. You can if you're a junkie for a sale. If you're addicted and you're a newbie who's worried about doing, I'll do anything. I'll do rentals. I'll get any buyer. No, I'm telling you, don't make those mistakes. Maybe for a little cash flow, but you better spend a lot of time trying to figure out how you're going to get a listing at or above the median price. Because if you want this assembly line eventually to talk about money in a profitable way, you don't just start doing any listing either. So you can see where we're going to go in this course on how to do all this. But the marketing thing is not what you think it is. It's a strategic discussion that walks through these things and says, where do you want to do business geographically? What is the median or above price? Where are those listings that we can get? What will you say to them to have them decide on you? How will you say it with scripting? How will you follow up to protect those so you don't lose it? See, we're just going down an assembly line. And we go from marketing preparedness to matching it up with the leads to using scripts to convert those people. And that's where we get into this conversion module. So we're all ready with marketing. We buy the raw materials and we begin to chop them up to look like a listing. So we take them from leads. We get rid of all the ones that are no, my plans have changed, right? The narrative starts to become clear. I get rid of that, just like a manufacturing plan. There is waste at any manufacturing plan. And in this case, it's leads. There are so far fewer leads that are going to become a prospect where you know the why, you know how motivated they are, so that you're giving not just that initial information product to them, but more. Now you can add digital. Now you're layering it with digital and physical and phone calls and insight over until you can trip them to a client. Now you're babysitting those clients by talking to them constantly, and especially in a changing market like this is across the country, slowing down, talking to them about the same information you started with from the beginning. So again, a business vision for all these why we do this in marketing, why we do this in conversion, why that leads to the closing process where you better be watching it, because just like I was, we just lost the deal. As much as I was watching it and trying it, right? We lost it. So we go backwards to client. We fell out of closing module. Now we're back to client module. Ladies, we have to meet. We have the report. We have to go over all these things, tighten this up and talk about this. See what I mean? Like an assembly line's a real thing. Real things happen on that. But if you're strategically organized, what you do tactically now blows away what anybody else can even try to do to compare to you. It blows it away. I was just sitting here with a listing presentation ready to go. We have a formula for seller qualifying questions. So even though we couldn't get them to the best of our ability, we went back. She's a past client. She's tough to get. So we filled in some blanks so that when we go to the house, they know me as a buyer's agent. I don't act that way. I act like a seller's agent. Hey, I want the nickel tour. Let's talk about everything you did. Hey, sit across the table from me. Everything becomes tactically tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter every week. We made a mistake with this listing on one of our tactical plans. We went back up into the room, thinking strategically, what did we do wrong? And we adjusted our plan, Laura and I. And now that permeates the whole coaching program. What do I mean? Well, we had been developing a fact sheet, a cheat sheet beyond the MLS, roof, septic system, all these things that we needed quick. Well, we were taking the owner's word for it. Now we say strategically, no good. Change the plan. Okay. Don't ever take the owner's word for it. Go straight to the town, verify everything. Some of you maybe already do that, right? But that's how you start to do these things, right? You're so locked into a business formula, it becomes a pattern of behavior. And so what has happened now over time using this model is, yes, there's a process for improvement, but man, are we tighter and tighter and tighter in the segments of that assembly line. We are tighter. So that if there's when there's a big change in the business, like this whole thing about buyer agency, and it was going to change the world, and that was the end. Well, it wasn't. In fact, my business model did not change a stitch other than legally when we're supposed to have somebody sign something by MLS rules or law, right? That's all. It's a technical thing. but I didn't have to change a thing because the way that we meet buyers, the information product that we give them, the people that they are, we're just giving so much for free. We're not even asking you to become a client. That's how tight our system is. We're so good at converting you from a lead to a prospect, babysitting you as a prospect, that they come to us. In fact, it happened today. I had an email this morning. Lady met me at an open house, received the information product on the buy side, said, hey, we met. Kathy's been great at following up me as a prospect. She's been great. Continue to give information. We're coming to town. We don't want to bother you. So we're going to hit a couple things, but we really want your help and we want your advice. Great. When can we get on a phone call? This all just happened today. All because everything is already pre-strategized, pre-planned, so that when I go to these 6 open houses for an hour apiece, it's like a machine. And I can identify avatar. Yep, I like that person. I know that one doesn't have an agent, but they're not serious about buying something. And they dismissed me. Next. So that's how this business model really sounds and works in this business. So I implore you, because I'm going to go to Q&A now. I implore you, please, if you can't make one of these calls, listen to it and ask your questions and write them down, because at the end of this, I will answer any question at the end of each week. When I give the lecture portion of it, I will absolutely answer whatever question so I don't leave you hanging, because there's layers. I do understand. Visionary layers, that's the easiest piece for me. Planning is the discipline to make checklists at each section. And tactically, how do we do what we do? I'm happy to share that when we're in these live calls. But most of this is, why are we doing this? Because you will drown without a formula. And I don't want to see that happen on my watch. And that's why I give back. I wish somebody had really helped me 25 years ago like this. I could have saved myself a lot of pain and time, but I guess that was my cross to bear up the hill, right? So, all right, questions about tonight and about this business model that's up on the screen? Or comments? Can you guys hear me? I can't hear anybody. Yeah. But yeah, you're stunned. You're in stunned amazement. I was that on my game, right? I know you're going to tell me that, Shauna, right? Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, well, this is a really good question because it's a tough one, because you're right. I'm sitting here jumping up and down telling you all you better be listings oriented first every day of every week, then buyers, right? Of course, I never throw the buyer, baby out with the bathwater per se. I never do that, but it does merit me qualifying what I'm saying. So I am always in the buyer acquisition mode. It just happens to be when I'm trying to help my seller get sold, right? That's my number one way. So I'm in the middle of that market making in that open house, right? The majority of when I'm working in the business, because I'm an hour at a listing presentation plus or minus, but then I'm 3 hours worth of work, 2 days. So 6 hours guaranteed to 5 hours, unless I take time off, right? So I'm 5 to 6 hours making a market mostly with buyers. So as much as I'm out there, because we have the telemarketers helping me try to find them, so their hours are put in. So let's just be transparent. That's what the machine looks like, right? But you're absolutely right. When I've been around it too long now, where I've seen several troughs, I call them troughs, right? So you get to the top and it bends. The curve starts to bend. And you're right. It's an interesting time at the top where you feel la resistance against the prices because the interest rates are up, and we just gone on a run for so long this time. It should have corrected back. Gee, I would tell you at the beginning of COVID, you're 2020, 21, 22, you should have seen something slow then, just based on natural cycles. But you had this crazy accelerant because of COVID. right? And we printed all this money. And when we printed the money, it found its way into finance. Finance started buying companies. Entrepreneurs started getting money, and they started buying luxury real estate. So we have this phenomenon in luxury real estate to our benefit in this group because we preach it, right? It ran away. But what it did was pulled everything up with it. So that echo effect backwards, now people are buying, something less. So it's the strangest phenomenon ever. And we have to pay the piper for that. We're paying. And you can see that, and the Fed knows this, right? So the Fed has just been stubborn. Now, they might have started to ease down a little bit if Trump didn't come in at this exact time and tariff conversation. Whatever plays out or not, we don't know. But our business is very much predicated on consumer confidence. Like I'm an independent, so I have no dog in the hunt on a Democrat or Republican administration. I like to piss people off on X getting involved in it, but that's about it, right? But the idea is I watch economically who's good for us. I went bananas during Obama's administration because I was always wanting him to help us with consumer confidence, right? I just felt economically it never came out of his mouth to give that consumer confidence in real estate. So you have a lot going on here at this top. You have high rates after super low rates. Okay. You have the Fed being stubborn because inflation is still kind of around, Like I said today in the article that I just wrote, I said inflation is still hanging around like a bad cold, right? It just won't seem to go away. It wasn't terrible, but it was warmer than colder. So that means Fed's unlikely to do anything at this meeting in July. So here we go again. And if you take it to a micro level, I'll take you to Boston. I'm going to show you inventory over 6 months, 6.71 months, almost 7 months worth of inventory. In 25 years, I can't recall that in Boston. Okay. Now, I got that buyer who came in and said something. I have two buyers. I'm like, don't worry, we're coming in. But my caveat to you is actually what you mentioned. If it's a good house, there still might be a bidding war. Because this isn't something that just went from here and the elevator went down 3 floors. It's bouncing around. And the better properties, or even good ones in good locations priced right, still might get multiple offers. I mean, crazy enough, in the deal that happened, I've been on the market for quite some time. I had 2 offers the same day. It's weird like that, right? So, you have this turbulence. But the call to buyers is, hey, let's go look. Let's get you some sold prices. You can see the money's actually buying a little bit better now, right? You're getting a little bit more bang for the buck. I know the rates suck, but you got big cash down. We think anticipatory, help says, hey, by the fall, you're going to see rates come down a little bit too. So let's go now and start to look in this big pile, because in the big pile is who? Some desperate seller. Holy shit, I missed this. I got to get out of here. I lost my job. The early have to sell sellers are going to start to show up, right? Or they just like, hey, I'm 75 years old. I'm 80 years old. I'm going to Florida. I don't give a shit. I own the house. So right. What's it worth? Sell it, right? So you have that real stuff going on in the marketplace. So your verbiage to your buyers is, let's go. Here's why. Heavy inventory. And heavy just means it's going up. Like I have the folks out in, Seattle. Their inventory is still tight, but it's better than it was. Lee in Bethesda, Maryland, still tight, but better than it was. So some places it's not so easy, even though other places it is easy for buyers. But you want to speak to them about the trend line, right? Where's that trend line headed? I think that's the most important thing. But I am always in buyer mode, but as a byproduct of pumping that listing, getting that listing, to have activity or not, and feedback, right? That's all part of that 7-step system, is that the push marketing says, we're going to call, we're going to drop those postcards, but we're going to open house you to death, because we're going to use Zillow and Redfin to have people know that there's an open house. And people love open houses. I can't believe when somebody tells me, oh, those are no good. Keep saying that, please. People love, this buyer just said it to me. We love open houses because we can go in and out of them. And if we're serious about something, we'll call you, right? And this is why brokers have gotten lazy and don't do as many of them, right? So these unencumbered buyers are walking through the door to me, and I'm so strategically prepared to look for avatar, to match them up with USP, that's how we get them. But I'm going to be talking to everybody that wants a conversation. Inventory's up. Inventory's up. So keep watching inventory. In fact, Shauna, if I were to change the screen and go into the newsletter, which I won't, you can go to the website, thegriffin.co, watch my theme. I'm warning about this. I will show it. Let's just do it, right? Hang on. Yeah, I will. Oh, I don't want to leave people that don't know hanging, right? Let me make it stupid simple. I do have to change the screen though, so hang on 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna show this. So tell me when you can see the Market Insight screen. Yes, no? Yeah, okay. So watch, it's very subtle, but you see what I just talked to you about, Shauna? There it is. Okay, working from July back to May. The Fed is stubborn. We're seeing inventory back here in June. We know in predicting that tariffs and inflation are going to be a problem this year, right? This is going to be a problem because we don't think that interest rates are going to come down, right? Here, we'll listen to it too. Hi, I'm Danny Griffin with this month's Market Insight. It's extremely important to understand the psychology of the residential real estate market and what a weighting that places on decision making for buying and selling. And although in this month you're going to see a lot of good news for sellers, inventory's up for buyers, so there's generally good news, but we have definitely noticed that buyers are much more cautious in their approach to buying. And again, last month we talked about tariffs, and you could see the measurement reflected in a huge drop over the last several months in the Consumer Confidence Index. In this month's newsletter, remember that? So that was the beginning of the prediction of the trough. That's May, right? That's May. And if I go back to April, I started talking about it then. So you're just watching this theme go. This is why I love doing that weekly blog, because these are the things I write about. Then I said, we're going to watch it, right? Then we go here. Hi, I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Griffin Realty Group, with this month's real estate market update with a particular focus on our primary markets of Boston and Cape Cod. What we've noticed in both markets for the first time is an increase in inventory. Cape Cod, for example, had been very strong for sellers with only 2 months worth of inventory in the first quarter, plus or minus, and that swelled to nearly 5 months. So we'll see as we go into the summer and summer traffic slows the market down typically, we'll see if that begins to back up. But we definitely know that the houses on Cape Cod that need the most amount of work are really experiencing a stingy lot of buyers who are bringing their contractors, taking their time because they know they have it. Okay, so you see, just same thing I tell you when I'm talking to you. Thanks for tuning in to this month's real estate market update with a particular focus on the Boston and the Cape Cod market. We continue to be concerned about the high inventory levels that we've been seeing. They have not been being absorbed, especially in downtown Boston with over 6 months worth of inventory, and Cape Cod now close to 5. And we still are in a stubborn stuck spot for the economy, with the Fed holding steady on rates going into what will hopefully be a drop in the Fed funds rate later in July that will positively affect mortgage rates on the downside, because not going to happen, right? Because what happened is now, if you go to today's news or yesterday's news, the consumer price index was what they would term on Wall Street warm, right? It was warm, meaning if it's hot, it's going up, right? So it went up a little bit versus February, but you would expect some of that because we're going into the summer season, people start spending, things get a little hotter. But you can see it's economics as it affects our business is not rocket science. And the great news is we have all of these, newsletters that we call them, right? We call them the newsletters that just give us the data. So the insight, which makes us good, and here was today's, right? This was today's. CPI rises this week, right? Why the Fed may hold rates and what it means for buyers and sellers. So now, I mean, it's 2 weeks out from August 1st, but I'll say we were hoping to see this. But if I'm Nostradamus here tonight, Shauna, Fed's not going to do anything, right? Not with the CPI still being, still being there. I don't care how much Trump yells at Powell. I just don't see it, right? I don't see it. And if he does, then he definitely caved, and he's just not that type of guy. So, but that CPI index right there, having risen, is going to keep rates where they're at. So there's no psychological advantage to a decrease to get some of the psychologically driven people going all the way back to what I said. Consumer confidence index tanked earlier in the year, tanked. It fell off the cliff, right? And we're trying to climb back out of that. So we need the Fed not just to do this so people will step up and afford a house for less money, but psychologically, we're calming this down. But you have this conflict between here we are about to get killed in real estate with these backed up inventories, but yet if you go to the grocery store, it doesn't feel any cheaper. So you got this tough spot in the economy where the damn orchestra won't play in the same, in the same lane, which is why there's probably some legitimate reason to be pissed off at this administration, because he's only got 4 years and he's trying to do everything in the first 6 months. And I've really got everybody discombobulated. So you have these conflicting forces in the economy. One thing is still kind of creeping up, and here we are, a big piece of it, and we're kind of creeping down. So it's a tough spot. You're absolutely right. That's why, right? Make sense? Yeah. So good. Excellent question. Because yeah, go ahead. Fire away. Sure. Yes. Yeah. Um, yeah. If you could be a little bit more specific with me, are you wanting Ben to have a conversation with them, or are you just asking me what my opinion is of where they're at? I mean, yeah. Incentives. When banks get squeezed, okay, they come up with incentives. Buy down on the rate, right? When they first went up, that was a big play, Ben. That there were sellers and bankers that were offering to buy down the rate, right? So you have to go to those people and say, hey, and it's best if you match it up with a property, right? So let's say you borrow an open house that's typically in Seattle, a first-time home buyer house, right? And I know that's gotten expensive. So you got an $800,000 house, all of a sudden was, at 2%, 3%, even 4 or 5% was affordable. Well, now at 6.85%, it's not. So can one of these banks buy down that rate for a couple of years in the hopes that we're trending down anyway and they can refi? You're looking for a program that you can promote on a particular property. The best way to do that is a flyer. Hey, I'm doing an open house for such and such a house. Do you have any programs that are incentivizing a lower rate up front? Or can you buy down what do you have for me? Give me something and we'll get together. That's how I would do it. You're welcome. My pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. By the way, I put the TRC model infographic in the chat. If anybody doesn't have it pinned up to where they are, you can download that PDF and print it. I highly recommend it because it just keeps you. See what he did? He did exactly what the framework says. Ask me a strategic question. And now tactically, I told him what to do, right? Strategically, how would you take advantage of this situation with this type of, a potential funnel? Can a banker help me? Yes, they can, right? So that's exactly how you do it. Good job. All right. What else? Final call. They flicker the lights on. Grant's used to that, right? Back in his old college days, flick the lights on, flick them off. Last call. Okay, appreciate y'all being here live for the first one here. It's always good with an audience, and I know people forget when we start again, but here we are. So we'll keep rocking and rolling. TRC, see you tomorrow on the Mastermind. You're welcome. My pleasure. Good question tonight, Sean. I appreciate you letting me get off. Yeah, it was good. Great. Thanks.